viewers. Now, over the weekend, as we heard from our news, we had a second audio clip released. Minority Leader Calvin Morris went on radio 95.5 FM to release an 8-minute clip regarding, a little extension of what we heard a few weeks ago. So, and of course, in that clip, there was some details about, the strategy for public relations, for how the current administration of the THA will handle their image going forward. Now, to give us some perspectives, because it is our information that there are more clips around and more will be released in the coming weeks, perhaps months, and to give us a perspective on that, we have Councilor Kerr, who is also the Assistant Secretary of Education, Research and Technology. Good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Kandace, and good morning to Tobago and your wider viewing and listening audience. And I'm doing okay, I'm doing fine.
On a morning where it's a very big morning in Tobago, perhaps the biggest morning of the year, it's budget day in Tobago, but yet we are concerned with another audio clip that is also quite controversial and is, generating a lot of negative attention. First of all, when and where was this 8-minute clip recorded?
Well, I don't think I would be able to say, because we have had quite a few meetings and so on. So, a clip such as this one, I would not be able to tell you when and where. But the concern really is that, and one of the reasons why I chose to come on this morning is to talk to Tobago, really. Not really to respond to what is out there, but to talk to Tobago and Tobagonians, because I think that it is important that we do that. So that the focus for me is not to try to analyze or, take apart the audio recording, but to try to connect the dots in terms of what has been happening lately in Tobago, because it is a concerted effort to try to put a narrative out there. It is a concerted effort to try to distract, to try to create chaos, to try to create mayhem in Tobago, and to distract the population from what is really the main issue. Mm-hmm. So that this morning I'm not here to try to respond to them, but more to talk to Tobagonians and let Tobagonians understand what really is at stake.
What is the main issue, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think that there are some fundamental issues of integrity, because, it has been touted that, these recordings are saying certain things. Let's put that into perspective. If it is that these recordings are saying certain things and they would have come out and they said that these are being investigated, I'm asking myself how the minority leader feels so comfortable to go on a national radio station and release the contents of a closed meeting. Now, and why I want to talk about that, because I don't know if we are losing our way as politicians. Is it that now the way to do politics is to try to dig up dirt, get recordings on your opponents and release those dirty recordings, and that is the way we are going to go? Because if that is the way we are going to go, we're in a lot of trouble. If it is that you're going to be spying on your opponents and trying to get dirt, rather than focus on the issues that affect the Tobago population and how those issues are treated with, I think that is the way we need to go.
Now, you made a mention something. You said spying on the meetings. I want you to expand on that a little bit.
No, well, what I'm saying is this, right? When you open Pandora's box, how are you going to close it? Because this is just the start. We understand, based on what you would have said earlier, that there are other recordings. And is it that, how did they get the recording? Why do they feel the need to have these recordings published in the public space? It's similar to you in your own home doing certain things that are within the confines of your home. I remember the Prime Minister, and again, you could look at them and the posture and what they say, and you know that what is coming. He alluded to this as being, he was on the golf course and he wanted to take a pee, and he felt that he shouldn't do that because you never know who's taping. But that's a different situation. That is in the public space. It is not that this meeting took place in a bar or on the side of the street or in some public place. This is a closed meeting, and therefore there are things that happen in closed meetings. For example, even in cabinet, There are raw discussions that will take place that are not for public consumption. So if it is that the opposition is of the view that some law has been broken, then make whatever you have available to the police. But you are there putting it on national television, national radio, and trying to gain political points for what you have assessed as some breach of the law. And I'm saying that they have already said that it has been investigated. Let us see what the investigation relieves. But to tear these recordings from time to time, is it that next week we're going to hear another clip of somebody again? So therefore, there's a moral value and a moral ethical issue here, right? That you are taking, however you got it, clips of a closed meeting and putting it out into the public space and saying that you are concerned about the public, so that is why you're doing it. I beg to differ.
What about the morality of the content of the audio recording? Because that is an issue that a lot of people have brought up in the public space. There was a promise that the governance would be different, and then the contents seems to be contrary to what was promised on the campaign trail.
But the reality is this, Kandace, right? Our chief secretary is a young chief secretary, right? And mistakes have been made. Nobody's perfect. Any discussion, you can have discussion on any matter, and you will get ideas, different ideas coming around and so on on various, But that does not mean that. Most important, if you reflect on those ideas, and then you realize, you know what, that's not the way to go. So that I don't know that, someone can be chastised or even vilified for having frank discussions. You have frank discussions, and that's what I'm saying, that is not everything that is discussed at these meetings for public consumption. Because when you go into a closed meeting, that is why it is a closed meeting. Because you are going to have the kind of discussions that are not, savory, right? But the reality is how you go after that. And that is the point. So that I understand that there are persons who have those concerns. I have no challenges with that. But part of my concern is that we have a situation where the flip of this whole thing was brought up by the chief secretary, where he was being extorted, where we have evidence of a lot of corruption. And while I hear the other side talking about the audio, that they have said that is under investigation, so let the investigation go on and we'll see what is going to happen there. I have not heard one single word about the corruption. I live in Dallaford. Dallaford Bay Road is one of the roads that was mentioned, right? That's where my wife is from. And not a pebble has been moved on that road. Not a pebble. No paving, no patching, nothing. But there's an invoice to the THE for paving of that road. And if it is that we are so concerned about morals and ethics and so on, let us be fair across the board. So that while you're talking about the alleged audio tape and all of that, what about the THE being billed and paid in some instances to this contractor for works not done? Nothing was done. So that I think that if it is that you're going to talk about morals and ethics, then you can't choose which morals and ethics you're going to talk about. So that these are real concerns. And if it is that you are saying that you care about Tobago, then okay, the audio tape is being investigated, no problem. It's in the hands of the police, as I said. The chief secretary would have said that all of this information was sent to various arms. Where is their response on these matters? These are serious matters. We are talking about millions of dollars of Tobago's money, where we don't have it. We already don't get enough from the national budget. Millions of dollars. And this is just one example, because I live in Dallaford, so I could speak to that. And I heard about many other roads and so on that either what was promised was not delivered, in terms of it was supposed to be asphalt and then it was concrete, and the whole audit. And where is the prime minister on this? Where is the minority leader on this? These are serious issues, right? So I expected to hear them say, well, they are concerned about that. So apparently they are not concerned about that, right?
Now, when it comes to, because we have to discuss the contents a little bit, the chief secretary, when he first addressed the public of Tobago upon taking office, he said that the campaigning was done. Yet in the audio recording, he stated that he has to continue campaigning. So it sort of goes against what he said to the people. And I just want to get, I mean, because this is calling the integrity of the chief secretary into question. So how should the public now treat with this information?
No, I think as I said, as you go along, you learn. And I can tell you that this is a young administration. And many of the things that were said on the campaign trail, as you would be aware, when you get into office, you realize that it is a totally different story. You realize that many things that you promise, you will not be able to deliver at all. Some of them you will not be able to deliver in your first term and all of that, because you will not know what the situation is until you get into office. So when you get into office, very often you have to change some of the things that you thought you were going to do. And that is normal and natural, right? But as I said, it all depends on, we have to look at the whole picture. And we can't pick it apart, because sometimes things are said in a particular context. But if you get only a part of that, you will interpret it in a particular way. So you have to look at the whole picture and not just simply take this audio tape and say, well, okay, the chief secretary said this on the campaign trail, but no, he said something else. That is life. Life is dynamic. Life is not static. And therefore, sometimes things will happen that will cause you, even in your personal life, to change something that you had planned. So it's not a bad thing to change. I understand the concern of the public, and that is why I said today is not about the opposition. Today is about talking to Tobago and letting Tobago understand that at the end of the day, right, we are dealing with people, we're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with a young administration. You're dealing with an administration that came into office not expecting some of the things that they found. An administration that has been bombarded, an administration that has been attacked, an administration that, as I said, is evolving, and therefore things will change. So that and if you look at any political campaign, you can't show me a political campaign where any political party would have said certain things on the campaign trail and they couldn't deliver. So it happens, and therefore, I don't think that we can simply say that, well, the chief said this and something happened that would have caused a change. And there are many things that were said, many things that were promised, many things that, as I said, when you get into office and you realize the extent of what was happening in Tobago, that you realize you may not be able to deliver in your first term. So that happens, you have to adapt, you have to change, and you have to try your best to, do the best that you can under the circumstance when you get the additional information. And it's a simple case study.
Okay. Was anybody hired? Do you have any information about anybody being hired under the pretense of being a personal staff, etc., and also used to spread propaganda?
No one has been hired to do that. As I said, as far as I am aware, it was a discussion that Bono, wasn't carried out or anything like that. That is why I could sit here and say, let the police do the investigation.
And is there evidence to support it?
And that's what I'm saying. The police will do the investigation and they will find that no one was hired to do this. That is the reality, right? But I'm saying that in these kinds of meetings, you have very frank discussions. As a matter of fact, some of these meetings can get so heated that you can use some words that you would not normally use out into the public. And that is why these things are not for public consumption. At the level of these meetings, even among the members and so on, you may have disagreements, you may have, and so on. So these are things that happen, and that's why it's a closed meeting. Just like cabinet is a closed meeting, I'm sure that they have very unsavory discussions at the level of cabinet. It is the same thing that is going to happen here. But is it that we get tapes of these meetings and we release it out to the public? I'm saying that there's a moral issue there, because if you're saying that something was illegally done, make it available to the police. But I don't know that you want to have these kinds of recording just because what is the purpose? Is it for political gain? And that's what I'm saying.
Now, what about the fact that the recording was released on a national radio station instead of, utilizing Tobago media or some other form?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It makes it actually worse, because when you open Pandora's box, because you're shifting what we in Tobago. This is akin to, I remember looking at those Russian movies and espionage and those kinds of things. And really, we in Tobago, we have certain morals that we hold close, and we believe in certain things here. And just the other day, I was speaking to someone who has been in the PNM for a long time, right? Because I talk to a lot of persons who are in PNM. Sometimes we have casual conversations. Now, you know what the person said to me? He said, they are glad that they're on the way out because they never thought that we would have reached this point. Now, of course, they're not going to say that in a meeting. They're not going to say that in the public, but they confess that to me because, you know, persons who are right-thinking persons will look at the situation and see it for what it is. And that's why I keep saying I'm talking to Tobago this morning, because we have to guard against these kinds of things. Is it that no, that is the modus operandi, so we're going to try to find dirt on persons, and that is how we try to do our campaigning and so on? It cannot be. It cannot be, Kandace. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I know that now with social media, there's a lot of debate about what should be released in social media. And I may be considered a dinosaur because I believe that there are certain things that are personal and private to people, and that therefore persons should not be sharing those things and whatever. I personally, whenever unsavory stuff comes to my phone, I delete it. I don't share it because I don't think that those are things that should be shared and that they are things that should remain private and confidential. And if it is that it's a matter, as was touted about, that the law is being broken, give it to the police or the authorities. But you are sharing a 8-minute clip of a closed meetings or a closed meeting. And I'm saying that if you go throughout this country at all those meetings, whether it's private, whether it's government or whatever, there are frank discussions that take place that are not for public consumption. And that is fact. No one can dispute that.
Is this a sign of desperation from the opposition?
Well, one of the things that you know we have realized is that yes, it is, but it is a coordinated effort because we are seeing some things playing out in this space. For example, let me give an example. The minority leader recently called for the audit report to be made public. That is simply an opportunity. If the chief secretary makes the audit report public, you know what's going to happen. The persons who might be involved and we might be able to take legal action again. You cannot do that because it's in the public space. We are aware of that. So why it is that they're doing that? These are the questions that Tobago must ask themselves. Why it is that you are trying to call on the chief secretary to do something that you are aware that if he does it, it's going to make the persons who might be culpable get away scot-free. It has happened in Trinidad and Tobago before. And there's the debate about whether it was deliberately done or not. One of the things I can say is that our administration is trying, we are not focused on any particular individual, but we are focused on good governance. And this is part of good governance. You cannot simply go out there and pay these persons when you are seeing that there's a trail where, so in some instances, as I said, no work was done. In some instances, half the work was done, quarter the work was done. In some instances, the work was done poorly and so on. And as a responsible administration, you must conduct an audit before you pay. At no point in time, the chief secretary said he's not going to pay. He has always said he is going to pay, but he is going to do the audit. And for any right-thinking Tobagonian who understands that there must be accountability, I think that there is no question about that. So I don't understand why the persons on the other side consistently say, pay them. Why are you just simply saying that we should just pay them? When you are aware that we are looking to accountability, we must be able to account for what we pay and so on. And one of the things that we have realized, as I said, I was saying before, so you're calling for the audit to be made public. And they have constantly, over the last couple of weeks, been bombarding Tobago with a host of different things. So it started with the recording, then it went to the appointment of the chief administrator. Now, fortunately for me, I was in tutor, so I understand a lot about these public service appointments and so on. And when I heard the utterances by the Prime Minister, I was shocked. I was literally shocked that the Prime Minister alluded to the Chief Secretary as the one who somehow was able to have this senior public servant suspended. I'm like, but the politician has no part in that, right? And then the issue of who is to appoint the chief administrator and then who they wanted to appoint as chief administrator. I'm connecting the dots, right? And therefore, you know, I'm speaking to Tobago. Ask yourself these questions. Why are all these things happening at the same time, but they are all related?
What about in terms of the accusations of blackmail? Tell me a little bit about just some of that you all experienced on the executive council. What are the forms of blackmail you guys received and that sort of thing?
Well, maybe after this interview, I might get some threats. I don't know. But I am aware that other secretaries have gotten threats, right? I don't want to single out any secretary, but I know that in many instances, secretaries have been very distraught. Because remember, you are not used to this. As I said earlier, you came into this situation, you're a bit naive, you're thinking that, okay, you want to go into office and you're going to try your best to see what you can do to improve the life and the lives of Tobagonians. Never do you think that if you do this thing in a particular way, you're going to be receiving phone calls and those kinds of things, and you're going to be told, well, if you do this, what is going to happen to you and all of that. And therefore, it has been very traumatic for some of us. Because, as I said earlier, we knew, we're naive, and we didn't expect that aspect of it. That part where you think that your life and your children's lives, will be in danger for trying to do your job to the best of your ability. And therefore, we are again trying to adapt, because this is something now that we have to try to be mindful of. We have to try to do things differently. I know that persons, even when they're going home for meetings, they try to, not be predictable and so on, because the threat is real, right?
And then, I mean, we have a situation where the chief secretary said that the police did not take those threats seriously. Is that correct?
Well, the thing about it is that, and I would not want to pronounce on the actions or the inactions of the police, right? But there's a saying, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Because what we find strange is that these reports are being made and nothing is happening. And we know that there is a technology that you can find out who is behind these calls and all of that, but nothing has happened. I know that secretaries have made reports, and based on the last set of discussions that we would have had, nothing has happened. But we have to live and we have to go on. And I don't want to say that, or who controls the national security apparatus or what has been happening. As I said earlier, I find it passing strange that these documents were released to various agencies within the police service, but they are actively, and they came out in the public space and saying that they're investigating an alleged audio tape. But there are some bigger issues here that we haven't heard anything on. Maybe they're actively engaging in it. I don't know, but I'm just saying that I wouldn't want to say what is the reason or what isn't the reason why these things are not being treated seriously. I don't know if they're waiting for somebody to actually get injured or hurt or even killed before they take it seriously. Because
is it that serious?
I would not, at this point in time, simply dismiss a threat. I will not. And I am hoping that it is not serious, but I am not going to dismiss it, because one of the things that you asked earlier is that if this is desperation, and we have never seen this kind of politics in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is the reality. And there are persons who are in the public space who are saying they wonder, well, what is going on? This kind of constant barrage and attack. And the Prime Minister did say that if Tobagonians didn't vote for PNM, that you all are going to have a hard time. And he's holding to his word. I think the last time I checked, and I don't know if it has changed, there is no permanent secretary attached to CAS, right? That could also potentials down the road. We are waiting to see. So all these people who are here, who are supposed to be functioning in Tobago to ensure that Tobagonians, enjoy what they have been enjoying and get the salaries and get various services, all of a sudden, we are seeing that it's a difficult thing to do. This is not the first chief administrator the Prime Minister has appointed, but somehow he had amnesia and forget that he's the person supposed to do it. And all of a sudden, it's everybody else to blame. And, that is my disappointment, because I think that the media has a role to play in all of this. I am saying that because I think that the information is out there. The information is out there, it's available, it is in the Constitution, and, nothing is wrong with interviewing people like myself to give their perspective on things, but I think in media also, in things like this that are factual, that you can do the research and say it to the population, because it's a learning exercise, that these are the steps. When we did our research, these are the steps to have a chief administrator appointed in Tobago.
All right. Well, we're going to have a sticker pin right there because we've got to take a quick break. But when we return, we'll continue our conversations with Councilor Orlando Kerr.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. And yes, viewers, you are seeing the legislative building because we are getting ready for what is like one of the biggest days of the year here in Tobago. It is the THA budget day. It sort of snuck up on us, just with everything that's happening in our space. But don't you worry, we at Tobago Updates are going to give you some very, very detailed and exclusive coverage with a pre-budget, starting with the pre-budget show after GMT, as well as live coverage of the presentation in the House by the Chief Secretary, a post-budget show, and a nightly show. So you're going to want to stay tuned. But returning to our conversation this morning on Set With Me, we have Councilor Orlando Kerr, who is also the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Research and Technology. And of course, we are speaking about, all of the things that are happening in the space. Today is budget day, but we are distracted by the second release of an audio clip and so on. Mr. Kerr, I want you to speak a little bit on the fact that all of this is happening. You guys have your perspective on it. The opposition has their perspective. But at the heart of it, the man on the ground, the public, they are very confused. They are very wary, very disappointed. All of these sentiments are coming out as more and more of these clips, as more and more of these allegations are circulating in the space.
And I'm glad that you asked that question, because constantly we are met by persons. Yesterday I was at the gas station. There's a gentleman who I know. I don't know what his political affiliation is. And he called me. People always call me in the public, and I went over and he said, you all hold on, stay strong, we see what's going on. And a lot of my colleagues are saying the same thing to me. Persons are coming to pray with them. Persons are coming, to speak with them. And I get the sense, because Tobago has always had a very intelligent population who can see these things. And to me, persons are seeing this for what it is. This whole issue is about trying to distract Tobago from an audit report and what will follow, so that this is coordinated. You mentioned something earlier. Today's budget day. One of the most important days in Tobago, if not the most important. It is the day that Tobago tries to put out there the plan for the future and for the next year, and what it is that we require, which we have been getting short all the time. And what does the opposition do? They try to organize a march. Mind you, my information is that there are persons from Trinidad who came up for this march. This is a whole other story, because you have Trinidadians coming up to try to remove our Chief Secretary in Tobago, which is typical of the PNM, right? But it's budget day, the day that Tobago's next year, fiscal year, is going to depend on. And all you can do today is to try to organize a march to remove the executive so that you could get back into power. It tells me where your thinking lies. It tells me that you don't really care about Tobago. Because notwithstanding your feelings and your thoughts and your ideas, and mind you, there have been numerous marches in Trinidad to remove Keith Rowley. So having a march, we don't have a problem with that, right? But we are saying that today, which is one of the most important days, where Tobagonians are struggling and suffering, and we have inherited a debt of over $1 billion and so on, and we are about the planning for the future of our children, education, agri, health, everything. And rather than you be a part of the process, you are thinking about distracting the population by having a march today and bring up boatloads of Trinidadians to try to remove our Chief Secretary. But this is indicative of how the PNM has operated. Because I remember in 2020, this is normal. The internal elections were very nasty. And you could not believe that all of these persons were on the same side. The kind of mudslinging, the kind of character assassination and all these things that were going on. And it was orchestrated because we recognized what eventually happened, because they needed someone there who could facilitate certain things. And we saw what was the result of that. When it was the 6-6, lands were being bought in Bacalet for $40-something million and that kind of thing. Who was the land bought from? Think about it. Connect the dots. And I'm saying that Tobagonians have to be mindful. These are not things that I am saying, or these are the facts, right? So that Mr. Charles was forcibly removed. Everybody was here, and everybody saw what happened. And they put someone who Trinidad could dictate to. And the reality is this, and this is just my view, that there is no Tobago PNM. The PNM is controlled by what happens in Trinidad. So all of what you are seeing going on right now is well orchestrated, well planned, well timed. It is not by chance that that 8-minute audio came out over the weekend, you know. That was planned because they know that the budget is coming up. Let us throw something else in the mix to create a distraction. And while we're at it, let's put a little flavor into the pot and have a march today as well. Create further distraction so that the media and the persons in Tobago are like, oh my Lord, another thing. And constantly, and might I add, Kandace, I'm of the view that it is going to get worse before it gets better. Because these persons will stop at nothing to try to distract Tobago from what has been happening and to try to create chaos, most importantly. Give the average person in Tobago the impression that everything is chaotic and nothing is functioning. But if you examine what has been happening, I remember the last town meeting that we had, and there was a young lady who came and she pleaded and she said, let us stop the politics and let us work together and all of that. But in this scenario, I want Tobago to look to see where the chaos is being created. Who are the aggressors? Who are the ones who constantly try to do things to disrupt what is happening in Tobago? And you're going to get your answer. And that is what is important.
I want to also speak to the allegations that your administration has been contracted Trinidadian contractors, specifically from South. And there's that allegation out there that your team is somehow connected with the UNC. Is that true?
Okay, you know why I'm laughing, right? I'm going to go back to the Kolkata ship. And if I say that, I don't even think that I need to expound on that. Because one of the things that the PNM does very well, I don't know if they're saying very well, because I think people are getting wise now. They use tried and tested things that succeeded to try to, again, dissuade and distract the population from the real issues. And we know what happened when that statement was made. Because persons in Tobago do not like when other external parties are interfering. So that, of course, they're going to allude to that. They're going to try to say, well, you know, the TPP now is aligned to the UNC. But in a situation where there is sensationalism, and this, the chief responded by making certain statements and so on. As the opposition in Trinidad, you're going to take that up. So I don't know that that is because they are aligned to us, or as with everything else, whenever there are opportunities for the opposition to say certain things about the ruling party, they will, right? So, you know, it is really unfortunate, I should say, that they continue to play this race card. And again, the same thing that you asked about the contractor from South, it says something in the person's mind in Tobago. They think about somebody from South as being not Negro. So that, again, they play in the race card to try to incite Tobagonians into thinking that we are taking Tobago's dollars and giving it to persons in Trinidad. And not just persons in Trinidad, but persons from South.
But even though some of those contracts are large sums of money, we had some information published in one of the daily newspapers yesterday with just a breakdown of the contracts. And we're seeing where the large contracts are given to Trinidad-based contractors, not Tobago-based contractors. How do you trade with that?
But I think based on my knowledge, right, what was said is that a lot of these larger contracts are design build finance, which means that you have to do the contract, and sometimes in many instances you're not going to be paid for sometimes 2 years. And that is the reality of what happens, in that there are not many contractors in Tobago who could spend that kind of money and not get a cent upfront and have to wait for a very long time to get the money. But I want to just add something into the pot. Because these same people who are touting about Trinidad contractors getting contract, there's a present minister of government who got numerous contracts under the past administration. He's from Trinidad, and he has numerous companies registered in Tobago and was eating the lion's share. Why they don't say that? And they as well had contractors from Trinidad. So the thing is, right, what the administration is doing, we have to try to build our contractors in Tobago to give them that capacity, right? But the reality is that I don't know that you could live on the twin island of Trinidad and Tobago and say you're not going to give any contracts to persons in Trinidad. And I think that, again, it's about trying to create sensationalism. It's about trying to create a narrative, right? And, you know, as I said, Tobagoans have to open their eyes and look and see what is happening. Because one of the things that we have recognized is that every single thing that we try to do to advance this island, we are being stopped, we are being sidetracked, we are being stymied through the use of state agencies and all these things, because they don't really want Tobago to develop, you know. Mm-hmm. They are willing to sacrifice Tobago so once they can get back into office. And I can tell you that persons of that party are party first. They have shown that time and time again. PNM first and country after.
So is that the reason why this whole talk of shaping the narrative came from the Executive Council?
I think that one of the things that has to happen is this, and I think anybody can appreciate this. When you're a secretary or the chief secretary, you simply do not have the time to respond to a lot of things. And that any political party must have a vehicle to put the information out there. The word propaganda, a lot of persons look at it as a negative word. It isn't a negative word. It is simply putting information in the public space. And that what are the things that I've recognized, and persons are not talking about this. There are some fake profiles on Facebook that are very rude, very disrespectful, the kind of things that they are spewing, and we know where they come from, right? And it's as though we are pretending as though we don't know that these things are happening, right? And as I said, when you have a new executive coming into office, inexperienced, even naive in some instances, you will have frank discussions, because when you are being bombarded, you're trying to figure out, how do I respond to these things? And therefore, discussions will take place, right? And that is my disappointment when persons are behaving as though, you know, they don't understand that in the real world, if things are happening, you have to try to react to them and so on. And therefore, you're going to have a host of solutions coming at you.
Right.
But it's the choice of the solution that is what is most important. So that people continue to happen. Well, they were discussing this. Okay, it was discussed. But the choice of the solution, that is what matters, right?
And that's where we're going to have to leave our conversation, Mr. Kerr, because we are out of time this morning for our program. But before we go, viewers, today is a big day in Tobago. Today is budget day. And while we were not able to really have much discussions about the lead up to the budget day, we are going to have a whole lot of discussions today. So right after GMT is concluded, we are going to get into the pre-budget discussions that will be hosted by political scientist Dr. Shane Mohammed, as well as we're going to have the live coverage of the budget presentation. And after the budget presentation, Dr. Shane Mohammed is going to be with us again to host a post-budget discussion. And then tonight, there's going to be more discussions as we dive into what the Chief Secretary is going to present today as he presents the fiscal statements for the year 2023 to 2024, and hopefully, be able to get all that he wants on his wish list. So viewers, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Remember to stay tuned to Tobago Updates. And of course, don't forget the news at 6:30 p.m. So we'll be bringing to you all the details throughout the day. You want to stay connected. And you know what's the best way to stay connected? You got to get Amplia and tune in to channel 102 on Amplia, where you can see all our content 24/7. So you don't just have to go on social media, although we like you coming on social media and giving your comments and so on. But please go and get Amplia. Make sure you get connected so you can see us. You can see the reruns of the programs and so on. And you can get all the information as we continue to bring you the best coverage right here in Tobago. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you again very shortly.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.